In the first lesson, Paul Foster Case asks a very simple question. What do you want? He asks the reader to answer it plainly, to reduce the answer to one clear aim, and to begin with the first true step. This second lesson turns inward. It asks what in us begins to respond once such an aim has been chosen. Case gives the subconscious a great deal to do. He does not treat it as a dim storehouse of impressions, nor as a mere background of conscious thought. He treats it as an active hidden agency, already at work in the body, in memory, in instinct, in intuition, and, once a purpose has been clearly formed, in the gradual realization of that purpose. That is the atmosphere of this lesson. Something in us is already at work below the surface. Case begins with the body. He says that from the beginning of life, subconsciousness directs the development and functions of the organism without waiting for conscious knowledge. The body grows, adjusts, repairs, secretes, and maintains itself through processes that the conscious mind never invented nor supervises in detail. He seems to begin there in order to establish a certain humility. Conscious thought is important in this system, but it is not the whole of mind. Much of life is already being carried by something quieter and deeper. From there, he broadens the claim. The subconscious does not merely regulate bodily life. It also records experience, reasons from premises, receives suggestion, transmits instinct and intuition, and begins to organize around a definite aim once that aim has been chosen. That is what gives this lesson its shape. The will may choose a direction. The subconscious then begins, in its own hidden way, to move with it. Case's treatment of healing grows out of that first claim about the body. He says the real curative power in every healing process belongs to subconsciousness. Medicines and surgery, in this view, do not heal by themselves. They may remove obstacles, establish conditions, or prepare the way, but the actual work of restoration belongs to something deeper. That is a strong claim, and it remains his claim. What makes it more interesting is that he does not leave it in a reckless form. He says quite plainly that one should not abandon other systems of treatment. And he admits, just as plainly, that while mental means sometimes appear to cure even stubborn conditions, we do not fully know why they work when they do, or fail when they do. That restraint matters. It suggests that Case is not trying to replace every other form of care with a simple doctrine of mental force. He is asking the reader to consider that beneath treatment there may be a hidden intelligence already concerned with repair, balance, and recovery, and that the mind may learn to cooperate with it. That is a quieter thought than it may first appear. It means the subconscious is not only a place where impressions are stored, it belongs to the living operation of the body itself. From healing, Case turns to memory. Here his treatment becomes more immediately recognizable. He says subconsciousness keeps a perfect record of experience. Whatever touches the senses leaves some trace. Under the right conditions, details may be brought back into awareness. But he adds something more refined than mere storage. The secret of good memory, he says, lies not simply in retaining impressions, but in making clear ones, relating them properly, and bringing them to the surface when needed. That is a quiet but important distinction. Memory, in this lesson, is not a heap, it is an order. The subconscious is presented as a kind of hidden treasury, not only of preserved impressions, but of relations among them. The work of consciousness is not to manufacture the treasure, but to learn how to draw from it with more precision. Most people will have felt something like this already. A name that would not come suddenly appears later without strain. A detail once forgotten returns intact. A line of thought continues somewhere below awareness and arrives when the mind has stopped forcing it. Case places all of this within the field of subconscious activity. It is not idle below the threshold. It continues to work. He then says something especially useful. The subconscious, as he describes it, reasons, but it reasons deductively. It works from premises. It takes what it has been given and develops from there. This makes it powerful, but it also introduces a danger. A false premise may be elaborated just as readily as a true one. This is one of the most practical things in this lesson. The subconscious is not treated as automatically wise. It is responsive, fertile, and strong. But if it is given bad material, it may work that material faithfully. Case says this helps explain superstition and sham doctrine. The reasoning may be orderly enough. The starting point may still be wrong. That thought casts an interesting light back on the first lesson. If the declaration of purpose is to be repeated morning and night, and if the subconscious develops what it is given, then clarity is doing more than serving conscious thought. The statement is becoming a premise in a deeper process. That is why vagueness matters. That is why false assumptions matter. In this system, what is planted below the surface does not remain inert. Case then turns towards instinct and intuition, and here the subconscious becomes something more than a storehouse or a reasoner. It becomes a channel. Instinct, he says, rises from below. It belongs to inherited subconscious life. Intuition comes through subconsciousness, but from what he calls superconsciousness. That distinction is characteristic of him. The subconscious is not the highest thing in the system, but it is the medium through which much becomes known. This allows him to gather a great many experiences into one field. Flashes of insight, artistic inspiration, quick recognition, sudden certainty, the brilliant move, the solution that arrives whole. He does not treat these as entirely random. He places them within the hidden operations of mind. For practical purposes, he says, they may be treated as subconscious and can be cultivated. That phrase matters. For practical purposes. Case is not trying to solve every metaphysical question in this lesson. He is trying to show the reader how to live and how to work. So whatever its highest source may be, if an intuition comes through the hidden mind, then the hidden mind can be prepared to receive it more clearly. That has a gentle force to it. Not everything useful comes by conscious strain. Sometimes the mind becomes more serviceable by becoming less noisy. Sometimes what is needed appears after the aim has been held steadily enough for deeper processes to begin aligning themselves around it. This leads to what may be the most magnetic part of Case's treatment of the subconscious. He says that once a definite aim has been chosen, hidden activities begin to operate. They provide needed materials. They bring one into touch with the people required to attain the goal. Something below the surface begins to connect us with what is needed for the thing we are trying to become, do, or have. Case knows that this can be explained badly. He says as much. Many theories have been offered, he notes, some plausible and others highly fantastic. But he does not leave the matter there. He says, in essence, that whatever name one gives it, something in us below the surface begins working in relation to our chosen aim. That is a large and not uncasual idea. It suggests that a real aim does more than focus the conscious mind. It alters the field of attention. It changes what is noticed. It changes what is remembered. It changes what is recognized. And in Case's broader esoteric sense, it may also alter what comes into relation with us. This is why his treatment of the subconscious never remains purely psychological in the narrow sense. He ultimately places these operations within what he calls the great magical agent. That phrase expands the horizon. The subconscious is not simply a private mechanism sealed inside the skull. It belongs to a wider field of operation, one in which mind, body, intuition, and circumstance are more closely joined than ordinary surface consciousness tends to assume. That is part of what makes the lesson feel both practical and strange. Case is not asking the reader to admire mystery for its own sake. He is trying to make the hidden side of all life usable. He even says that complete explanation is not necessary for effective practice. One may learn to swim without mastering physics. In the same way, one may learn to manage latent powers without first processing a final theory of how every result comes about. It keeps the lesson from turning into either dogma or abstraction. Case is not offering a complete science of the subconscious. He is offering a working doctrine. The subconscious is already active, already responsive, and already participating in the movement toward whatever aim has been clearly chosen. That brings us back to the declaration from the first lesson. When the reader says, "I will apply all my powers," Case says this includes subconscious powers. In choosing a definite object, one has already set them in motion. The repeated statement of purpose is not only for the conscious mind, it is a means of planting suggestion in a hidden and responsive field. That is why he tells the reader to continue the declaration morning and night. The words are doing more than reminding. They are planting. And because the subconscious works from premises, receives suggestion, channels intuition, and helps organize toward the aim, the declaration becomes something like a seed form. Not everything follows from it at once. Not everything becomes visible at the surface. Still, the hidden process has been given a direction. That is the central feeling of this lesson. Not that one may rest passively and let the depths do everything. Case does not say that. Action remains necessary. Sound premises remain necessary. Clarity remains necessary. But conscious strain is no longer the whole story. Something deeper has heard the aim. That is why the lesson has a quiet kind of encouragement in it. It does not flatter the reader with fantasies of effortless power. It asks for discipline, precision. It asks for repeated suggestion. But it also suggests that the whole work does not depend on surface effort alone. The hidden mind, properly directed, begins to cooperate. That is Case's treatment of the subconscious. Not passive storage, not merely buried feeling, not a decorative mystery. It is an active, formative, responsive, inward agency that belongs to the body and keeps record. It reasons from premises. It may deepen error or assist truth. It carries instinct and intuition. It receives suggestion. And once a real aim has been chosen, it begins moving in relation to that aim. Seen that way, the first two lessons fit neatly together. The first gathers the will, the second enlists the hidden mind. The aim is chosen above the surface. The deeper work begins below it. If this was helpful, subscribe and stay with me for lesson 3. If something in the lesson did not land for you, let me know in the comments.